Sicha we will be learning today is in Likutei Sichos, Chelik Chav Zayin, the third Sicha to Parshas Achrei. Before we start, I just want to mention that this is a very lomdish Sicha. There's a lot of lomdis in it, but a lot more than in the Sicha itself. You have in the Ha'aris, but we're not going to learn the Ha'aris. It's going to take very, very long. We're going to just learn the Pnim. And it's kedai that anybody who wants to know deeper and more about the Teichen, the Inyonim that's spoken about in the Sicha, should go through the Ha'aris. And I'll start over again. I just want to mention that this is a Sicha in Chelik Chav Zayin Likutei Sichos, the third Sicha of Parsha Achrei, and I'm giving a Hagdama that there's a lot more than in the Sicha. The Lomdes, there's a lot more in the Ha'aris, so we're not going to be learning it, but it's kedai that everybody who wants to know more depth in the Sicha should learn the Ha'aris also. B'shayches mit Ninye from Pekuach Nefesh steht in Gemara concerning Pekuach Nefesh. Pekuach Nefesh means when someone's life is in danger. So it says in the Gemara, in Masechta Yuma, Minayin lePekuach Nefesh shedeiches haShabbos. Where do we know that Pekuach Nefesh is someone's life is in danger, and the only way you could save his life is by being Mechal Shabbos, do something that on Shabbos you're not allowed to do, and that's the only way you could save his life. So the Gemara says, from where do we know that Pekuach Nefesh pushes away Shabbos, which means you're allowed to be Mechal Shabbos in order to save someone's life. And the Gemara brings Kama v'Kama Lemudim. The Gemara brings many different ways we can learn now this din that Pekuach Nefesh pushes away Shabbos. And the end of the Gemara says, the other, some of the Limud in the Gemara says you could say it's not full proof, but there's one that is full proof, and there's nothing that you could slug up this Limud. Is from Posik Sheba Pashasein, is a Posik in Pashas Achrei, where it says, you shall keep my chukim and my mishpatim, which means you shall keep my mitzvahs that a person should do and live with them. So the Gemara learns out from the words v'chai behem means v'chai behem, you should live with them, v'lei shiyomas behem, not you should die with them. That means you should not die because of a mitzvah. From here we see that if a person's life is in danger, and the only way you could save his life is by doing something that's against Shabbos, so the Eibishter wants you to keep Shabbos to live. But if it means by keeping Shabbos you're going to die, you have to be Machal Shabbos in order to save the person's life. That's the Gemara. Is the Chura Tamur, the Rebbe asks a Shaila question. It says, Aklal b'chol ha'teira kulo, as ein loch dover shem b'fnei, b'kuach nefesh, chush me'avedazore, v'gil arayis, v'shvich zomim. We know it's a rule that there's nothing that stands in the way of a person's life, except three Avedas that there you have to give up your life in order not to transgress these Avedas. And the three are Avodah Zorah, if it means worship Avodah Zorah to save your life, you can't do that. You have to give up your life. Gilei Arayas, which is adultery, and Shvichas Domim, murder. But everything else, we know that there's nothing that stands in the way of Pekuach Nefesh. All mitzvahs in the Torah. So why do we need a special limud that Pekuach Nefesh pushes away Shabbos, pushes away all the mitzvahs? From this Gemara seems, the Gemara asks, how do you know Shabbos, that Pekuach Nefesh pushes away Shabbos? We have this limud. It's not only by Shabbos, we know it by everything. Nochmer. So this kasha was, why do we need a limit special by Shabbat? Why is it included together with all the mitzvahs? But more than that, considering this din, that by all the mitzvahs except those major three, but by all the mitzvahs, you have to be Eved Avere and don't let yourself get killed. Bringt sich bekame mekemes, as es wird abgelernt from demselben Posik. Many places we learn, and how do we know that rule? That Pekuach Nefesh pushes away all the Avedas is from the same Posik. The Posik v'chai b'hem. The full movement, so since we know it from the same Posik, nevertheless the Gemara here says, concerning Shabbos specifically, that we learn it from this Posik, so we understand, those for the Gemara bring them limud b'myuchad b'negei Shabbos, that the Gemara brings this limud, this proof, concerning specifically by Shabbos, is the Snider Zel Beninya Vashtet Bekama Mekemis. So it's not the same thing that it says in other places that all the mitzvahs push away Pikuach Nefesh pushes away all the mitzvahs, all the avedas. Not a besonder inyan, welch is nicht shaykh, nur shaykh to Shabbos dafke. The Gemara is trying to tell us that something special by Shabbos, but it's not nuven. Obviously, since the Gemara speaks about Shabbos, mashma there's something different than Shabbos. It's not understood. Number of what's the diuk vinyam yuchat from Chai B'hem b'Shabbos? What's the difference in the same Chai B'hem that we learn out that you have to do every aveda except the three in order to save a life? What's so special about Shabbos? Shabbos is one of those. And the second thing, the main thing is der posuk u'shmartem v'chai b'hem retzich doch wegen mitzvahs b'chal, nicht wegen Shabbos v'myuchat. How can we b'chlal learn anything out in the Shabbos from this posuk when this posuk is not talking about Shabbos? This posuk talks about all the mitzvahs. What does the posuk say? U'shmartem v'chukeis vas mishpat, keep my mitzvahs, my mishpatim. And then it says v'chai b'hem. So we're not talking about Shabbos. So if there is something special in Shabbos, where do we see it in this posuk concerning Shabbos? Dafke, which means just to make it bekitzer, just in short. The question is, we see from here that Shabbos, the din that pikuach nefesh pushes away Shabbos, and you're able to be mechal Shabbos to save someone's life, is a special din. Even though it's by every aveda that you're allowed to do the aveda to save a life. By Shabbos, there's something special. But the question is, what is so special? But on the other hand, as much as it's special by Shabbos, it must be that this same din is by all avedas too. Because the posik that we learn it out for Shabbos is a posik that speaks by all avedas. So on one hand, there's something special by Shabbos, which we don't know yet what it is, something different in this din that Pikuach Nefesh pushes away Shabbos is different than by every other aveda. And on the other hand, to a certain degree, it must be by other avedas also, because the posik that we learn it out for Shabbos is a posik that talks by other avedas. So we have to understand what is this whole union here. So this is the kasha and the Gemara. There is what I verstehen the Rambam. Same thing we have to understand the Rambam. Was bring them limud zweimal. The Rambam brings this limud from the word v'chai b'hem twice. Frier in Hilchas Yisei Ateiret Zokter. First in Hilchas Yisei Ateiret, the Rambam writes, and that's concerning all avedas. And this is the lotion of the Rambam. Kesad, what is the din that you have to be over an aveda in order to save someone's life? If a goy comes and forces a yid and tells him to transgress any of the mitzvahs, if not, I will kill you. He should transgress the aveda and not get killed. And he calls the same pasuk because by mitzvahs it says you should do it to live with it. Live with them, but don't die with them. And the Rambam even holds more. The Rambam says that if a person was not Eved Aveda, but he rather died for all these other Avedas except the three, he's Mischai Benafsh, which means basically he committed suicide. Because the Rambam holds you're not even allowed to get killed in order not to be Eved Aveda. You have to be Eved Aveda. But where does he know it from? From the same pasuk. That's one thing he writes. In the halachas of Shabbos, he says again, you're not allowed to hesitate in helping a person that's his life is in danger, so you shouldn't hesitate whether to be Mechal Shabbos or not. You have to do it right away. Shnemer, as it says, and he calls the same pasuk, that the person should do the mitzvahs to live with it, but not to die because of the mitzvahs. So here we see again that the Ram does the same thing as the Gemara. By all the mitzvahs, he says that you have to be Eved Aveda in order to save a life, and he quotes the pasuk v'chai b'hem. By Shabbos again, he says it separately, that by Shabbos there's a din you have to not wait, you have to be Eved Shabbos, Mechal Shabbos right away if it means saving somebody's life. Where do we know it from v'chai b'hem? It's not verstandig, and derech anal b'gemara. So we have the same kasha we had in the Gemara. Favos dafür bringen demselben limud zweimal. Why do you have to bring the same thing twice? And obviously, as we said before, there must be something special in Shabbos, even though we learn it from the same limud. So there must be something special in Shabbos, and nevertheless, the limud is the same limud as by all. So whatever is special by Shabbos, to a certain degree, applies to all, as the Rebbe will explain later on at length. Rebbe says, you could answer like this. In Hilchas Shabbos, the Rambam Meisiv, in Hilchas Shabbos, when the Rambam says you have to be Machal Shabbos in order to save someone's life, the Rambam adds, from this din we learn, that the dinim of the Torah is not like a revenge, something that's very like dangerous. The mitzvahs are mercy and kindness and peace in the world. We see it from this din that if it means person's life is in danger because of Naveda, you have to do the Aveda because Torah is not just a nekama, something that wants to hurt somebody, so to speak. So that the Rambam says in Hilchas Shabbos concerning Shabbos. Aber in Hilchas he say that Teire lagabe andere mit alle andere mitzvahs. But in Hilchas say that Teire where he says the same thing that you have to do the Aveda to save a life, which he says in Hilchas say Teire by all mitzvahs, sagt das nicht. The Rambam there doesn't say this loshon that this teaches us that the Teire was given for chesed and not for nekama. It doesn't say that. So in order 15, the Rebbe says it's not a real kasha, but nevertheless, it's a point. The Rebbe makes a point. Why does he say it in Hilchas Shabbos? He could have said it by every mitzvah. The fact that you have to be even an aveda if it comes to save someone's life is a raya that the Torah's mitzvahs are not nekama. It's not revenge. It's not something to hurt somebody. It's only good. Sholem, chesed, etc. It's from them verstandig, since the Rambam doesn't bring it by all the mitzvahs, we understand that this is shaykh. This is connected, and it's negeya nor lagabedem was pekuach nefesh lich Shabbos. This idea that teaches us that the mitzvahs are given for chesed is something that has to do dafke with Shabbos, with the fact that pekuach nefesh pushes away Shabbos. With the Rambam is mamshech ben negeya Shabbos, as the Rambam continues concerning Shabbos, he says, "The elu apikursim sheimrim shezachilul Shabbos v'aser." Those apikursim who claim that you are not allowed to save someone's life by mig mechal Shabbos, and they claim if you do that, you are Machal Shabbos, you're going against Shabbos. Alei Makosavemer, the Rambam says the Pasuk refers to them. They're like saying that the Eibishter gave us bad chukim, bad laws, mishpotim that you can't live with. But he says it concerning Chil Shabbos. So we see that concerning Shabbos Dafke, he writes something special, that the mitzvahs that were given are only for Chesed, and that's negeya. And we see that from the fact that you should transgress Shabbos in order to save someone's life. And the Apikursim will say that it's called Chilul Shabbos. The Rambam mentions Chilul Shabbos. They don't know what they're talking about, etc., etc. But he writes about Shabbos. So we do see here there's something special in Shabbos. So what is special in Shabbos? We could say the explanation like this. This that we say that there's nothing the Torah besides the three Avedas that stands in the way of someone's life, and therefore Yaver al Yerek, you have to do the Aveda and don't let yourself die, is a din meyuchad b'fnei atzmi. That means there's a special din that you have to do this. To say that means is neither pirish adamokim sakonis and foshes mitoder chiv l'kaima mitzvah. Doesn't mean that if a person's life is in danger, the obligation of that mitzvah doesn't apply. There's no obligation. It's not true. They're chiyuv Leib. There's still a chiyuv. Shabbos, for your bichlal, you're not allowed to eat chametz on Pesach, let's say. And a person's life is in danger, and the only way you can save is by eating chametz. So you might think, when it comes to someone's life, there's no avera of eating chametz on Pesach. It's not true. They're chiyuv Leib. There's still a nisur. I says, no, pikuach nefesh is deichedim chiyuv. Pikuach nefesh, the fact that his life is in danger, pushes away the isur. The isur is there, but this overrides the isur, pushes away the isur. Shenke my Shabbos the Rambam. My Shabbos, the Rambam says a lotion like this: Shabbos like abachel shesh b'sakona reik chel l'chol advarim shetzorach lehan. Shabbos, concerning a person who's sick, that his life is in danger, it's like a weekday. For everything that has to be done for him to save his life, you're allowed to do it, just like you're allowed to do it in the weekdays. This means it's not that Shabbos there's Isser Malacha. Even when his life is in danger, there's still Osir. Elamai, the saving the life, overrides that, pushes it away. From the Rambam, we see it's not like that. Nor esmachdem Shabbos kechel, the Shabbos becomes like weekday. That means just like in the weekday, there's no din Shabbos, there's no aveda of doing a malacha. If it's negayah to someone's life, on Shabbos, it's like the weekdays. The gabachele sheyesh v'sakone is melachatchila nitob negated dvarim shetzorech on the Shabbos. The gabe, the sick person, so anything that has to be done to save his life, there is no Shabbos. That Shabbos is like a weekday. There is no din Shabbos. With the Magen Mishnah is Mavaya Das Rambam. The Magen Mishnah even explains what the Rambam says. Ados was mizog by Shabbos. V'chol she'ef shel shanos mishanin. By Shabbos it says that when it comes to do things that you have to do because a person is sick, you should try to, whatever, to avoid being Mechal Shabbos, you should avoid. Do everything with a shino, with a change. In der Melacha was mitut faran chayla, any Melacha you do for the sick person, you have to try to avoid as much as possible doing. So the Maggid Mishnah says, is legaba chayla she'ever sakon and it is. This is only said if the person is sick and therefore you're allowed to do certain things, but he's not dangerous, his life is not in danger. But if a person's life is in danger, this is not the din. But the because the gaba person who's sick and his life is in danger, it's like in the weekdays. You have to be mechal Shabbos for anything that he needs. Even it goes even more. Even the specific thing that you're doing, it's not connected to the danger. But if it helps the person who's sick in a way that his life is in danger, you don't have to change. You don't have to try to avoid anything, because Lagabe, that person that his life is in danger, Shabbos is like the weekdays. So now goes the teretz. Based on this, we see a teretz, the original kasha. The original kasha was, what's different on Shabbos? Every Aveda you have to be avid in order to save someone's life. So what's special by Shabbos that we make it special? The Rambam makes it a special din, and the Gemara makes it a special. And now we understand. Shabbos is not the same as the weekdays, as we just said. Not Lagabe, I mean Lagabe every other mitzvah. By every other mitzvah, the din is that the mitzvah or the Isser is still there, even if you have to save someone's life. But you're allowed to push it away. Shabbos, it's not like that. That's why the Rambam says specifically again by Shabbos, in addition to what he says by all Avedas, that you have to do Aved Aveda to save someone's life. By Shabbos, he repeats it again. And there he brings the limud v'chai behem v'leish behem, that from the pasuk it says v'chai behem, you should live with the mitzvahs and not don't die with it. So he brings by Shabbos. And as we said before, he adds by Shabbos that from by Shabbos he says that the mishpatim of the Torah, the halachas of the Torah, is not in the kom, it's not a revenge, it's not to hurt somebody, but it's only rachamim and chesed and sholem. So the Rambam says it after by Shabbos, because by saying that, Suzogn, he comes to tell us a new thing. As benegeyes hakonos nefoshes, when it comes to life being in danger, is in mishpate ha-Torah b'isur Shabbos v'lechatchila nigizogivon. The laws of Shabbos were lechatchila not said in the case where someone's life is in danger. Not like the other averos where you say if a person's life is in danger, you're allowed to do the averos. There the pshat is the averos are there, but the person's life overrides those averos. So the averos are there, but not by Shabbos. When the fire is the Rambam Mamsha, and that's also why the Rambam continues only by Shabbos. The Elo apikursum shem shezachil Shabbos v'osur aleim akosaveim erchukim l'tevim, that those apikursum claim that even if a person's life in danger, you're not allowed to mechal Shabbos, and if you do, it's called chil Shabbos, and you're not allowed to do it. So he says, and then the Torah says according to them, the laws of the Torah are not good. The Rambam writes it. Why does he write it by Shabbos? If you claim that you're not allowed to mechal Shabbos to save someone's life, what you're saying is that the law of Shabbos is not a good law. Because what we are saying is that comes to Shabbos, the law of Shabbos is not there. If they say it is there, so they're saying something wrong, but negate the laws, they're saying the laws are bad. So it's different of them. Other mitzvahs, the laws are against it. The law says you can't be mechal Shabbos, even if his life is needed. It says, oh, but there's another din that it overrides. By Shabbos, there is no law, l'chatchile, of keeping Shabbos when someone's life in danger. That's why here the Rambam says that if you don't say that, you're claiming on the law. It's a din that you're saying that the law is no good. And we're saying there is no law of Shabbos when it comes to pikuach nefesh. Besigna nachar, you're going to put it in other words. Bashar mitzvahs, he does begin tchuya. Pikuach nefesh is deichedim, iser. By other mitzvahs, when we say you're allowed to do an aveda to save someone's life, is tchuya, means it's pushed away. It's there, but it's been overridden. Shenke by Shabbos is hutra. By Shabbos it's mutter. It's allowed lechatchila. The iser is melechatchila nigizog geworden lekabachela shesh b'shtakona. Perei that all the isurim of Shabbos were not said if there's a person's life in danger. And as the Rambam says, just like the halachas of Shabbos were not said in the weekdays, there's no iser of malach in the weekdays. If it's concerning a sakona, there is no Isser Shabbos to begin with. Not that there is a Shabbos, but you're allowed to do the Isser. There is no Isser to begin with. So now we already have a certain approach of what the difference is. What's special about Pikuach Nefesh Deicha Shabbos over Pikuach Nefesh Deicha all the other mitzvahs. Now the Rebbe continues in the line, and then he's going to go deeper and deeper. This will also explain the difference in expressions in the Rambam. In Hilchas, he say that Torah b'negei kol mitzvahs. Hilchas Torah, when he says that when it comes to any mitzvah, you have to transgress it in order to save someone's life. Bring them limud. He brings this limud we learn now from the word v'chai behem, and he says it like this. Sheneber b'mitzvah, by mitzvahs it says, asher yasa esom ha'odom v'chai behem. The Pasuk says that you have to do the mitzvahs to live with. And then the Rambam repeats the words v'chai behem. So he says, the Pasuk says v'chai behem, so I want you to know that means, and then he says again, v'chai behem v'lei shamas behem. You should live with it and not die with it. So he brings the Pasuk and then repeats the word v'chai behem to teach us that you have to live with it and not die with it. When he says the same limud in Hilchah Shabbos, he says, that the Pasuk says you should do them and live with them and not die with them. It doesn't repeat again, saying the Pasuk says, and then he repeats that what does mean? It means it goes all straight. Person should do the mitzvahs. V'chai behem means v'leyamad behem. It doesn't chazer over. Why? Rabbi, explanation based on what we said before makes sense. B'chol ha-mitzvahs is the salimud meyuchet from posik. But all mitzvahs, the fact that you have to transgress to save someone's life because you have to live with it, it's a limud. But we have a din. There is an avera that you cannot do, and there's a limud that in the sakona you have to do it. We learned up from posik a bezunder din. We have a separate din. As mitzvahs are not deicha dem nefesh ma'idin. That mitzvahs don't push away the life of a yid. No, forget the opposite. Kuach nefesh is deicha dem mitzvahs. The life is the life of a yid pushes away the mitzvahs. That's what. So it's a limud. There is an avera. There's a limud that the kuach nefesh overrides the avera. Shenke ben geile Shabbos in the pirish mechai behem belei. Late in the Rambam, according to the Rambam, it says in post v'chai behem, and the Rambam says right away without repeating the words v'chai behem belei she'omas behem means nitas belen top a bezunder din pikuach nefesh deicha Shabbat. Not for learning a separate din. The way the Rambam writes by other mitzvahs, asher yasan v'chai behem, you have to live. So there's a limit here that it tells you live with it and don't die with it. So he repeats the word v'chai behem. Here, the belei she'omas behem is that hem shechabir from posik. He's taichim pshat in the posik. By Shabbos, the v'chai behem means different. V'chai behem means Shabbos is made to live. And if it's not living, then Shabbos wasn't made there. Mishpot te'ater is ein gesagt geworden, nur beim v'chai behem. All the halachas of Torah, meaning the halachas of Shabbos, was said only when it comes to live, if you live with it. Ebo beres can bring you yom bezayim, if you can bring you should die, is there is lechatchil, there is no yisur. So it's hinted, this difference between Shabbos, the koch nefesh deicha Shabbos, the koch nefesh deicha, everything is hinted in fact, in the way that Rambam writes it. The fact that he writes v'chai behem, and he makes a limud out of it. There's a special limud, v'chai behem, by Shabbos he makes it all one. Shabbos was only given v'chai behem, and if it's not v'chai behem, Shabbos wasn't given. So he doesn't have to repeat. By repeating it, he says there's a posik, and the posik is written, and the posik teaches us. Here the posik is saying Shabbos was given to live. And there's not it's a question not living, there is no Shabbos. If according to this, we could explain something else. To explain what Rashi writes, or bring them limit from V'chai Behem, Rashi in Gemara, when he brings this limit of the Gemara, V'chai Behem means, as the Kuach Nefesh is deich alle mitzvahs, that the Kuach Nefesh pushes away all the mitzvahs, Zokter dem Losh, the Rama writes like this. What does it mean? Pikuach Nefesh pushes away all the mitzvahs. Time is shall dover. What's the reason behind it? Because the life of a Yid is more beloved by the Eibishter than the mitzvahs. And that's why Omar HaKadosh Baruch Hu David says, let the mitzvah be bottled, let the mitzvah be taken away, and let the person live. So here the Rambam, the Rashi uses a lotion by the fact that Pikuach Nefesh pushes away all the mitzvahs. He says the mitzvahs are bottled. Aber by them limud from v'chai behem l'gab Shabbos as pekuach nefesh yeteicha Shabbos eich b'vakim sofik. But when the Rashi brings v'chai behem l'gab Shabbos, and even if it's a doubt, maybe his life is in danger, but it's a question of a person's life in danger, and therefore pekuach nefesh pushes away Shabbos, is loshen Rashi writes asher yaseh ha'odam ha'mitzvah sheyichi behem vaday. A person should do the mitzvahs if he will definitely live. V'lei sheyovei b'asiyoseh l'dei sofik means, and not if you, by doing the mitzvah, keeping the mitzvah, which in this case is Shabbos, you'll be a question, you might die. Alma, from here we see Mechalel Nasofik, that you could even Mechalel Shabbos, even if it's maybe a person's life in danger. He also pushes away Shabbos. But what do we see from here? As Heisem is like this. By all the mitzvahs, is Tibotel and mitzvah Yichizeh. The Rashi writes by the other mitzvahs that you have to push away. He says, the Eibusha said, let's bevattle the mitzvah. That means there is a mitzvah, But we're mavatal it for the sake of pikuach nefesh, even if it's a sofik pikuach nefesh, we're mavatal. So we see from Rashi that by other mitzvahs, there is a mitzvah which if you don't do it, it's an aveire, but we're mavatal it. That means we push it away. Shabbos is not a bittul mitzvah. Shabbos we're not pushing away the mitzvah. Nor a prati nasiyas a mitzvah. It's something in doing the mitzvah. The mitzvah to say the asiyah is gesagt geworden. This doing of the mitzvah, which means this keeping of Shabbos, where it says you have to keep, is lachatchila said sheyichi behem vada, that you certainly will live. Not if you do it, there'll be a sofik misa. So it seems to Menashe, it fits to what we said before, that by Shabbos, let's go start with other mitzvahs, by other mitzvahs, the Aveira is there. If you don't do that mitzvah, you do the Aveira is there, but the Torah said, well, this is more important. Be mavatal the mitzvah. And by Shabbos, he says, doing Shabbos is only if you're going to live. If not, there is no din of doing Shabbos. The whole doing is not important. There's no din of Shabbos. So l'chura, we have answered what we said, the question in the beginning, that what's the difference between Shabbos and all Aveira? By every Aveira, pikuach nefesh pushes away the Aveira. Shabbos also, why is it Shabbos special? There is something by Shabbos. But the Rebbe said the beer now is over nitin ganze mask. This beer that we explained is not satisfactory completely. Why? The Rambam zogt in Hilcha Shabbos, in Hilcha Shabbos, where we said the Rambam is telling us that by Hilcha Shabbos, there is no Aveira at all if it's a sakone. In the Hilcha Shabbos, the Rambam says, Hola Madato, the Rambam says, here we see, we'll learn from here, She'ei Mishpotei HaTeirah, that the Mishpotim of the Teirah, the mitzvahs of the Teirah, are not given as a nekoma, as a revenge, as a hurting, but it's chesed and everything. So if the Rambam means that by Shabbos it's only like that, and he says this in Hilcha Shabbos, so why does he write Ein Mishpotei HaTeirah? That says that means Eretveg mitzvahs b'chlal. He's talking by all mishpotim, all mitzvahs, and he uses the same thing. Ukepashtas hakosef, and from the pasuk it seems that way. The pasuk says Asher yasa oisam ha'odam v'chai behem, and the person should do them. What is them? All the mitzvahs should do to live. So even the Hilcha Shabbos, where we said the way we said before that the Rambam wants to tell us Shabbos is different. There is no Shabbos to begin with when it comes to sakana. So why does the Rambam bring that all mishpotei HaTeirah are not in the comment? And we said that, what does that mean? That the mitzvahs, the chatchil, is not given a sakana, but he mentions that by all the mitzvahs. And in the pasuk it says that. We learn it from the pasuk, Yasa Oisamod, that means all the mitzvahs you do. So whatever we said by Shabbos, l'chura should apply to all the mitzvahs. If Avos Zokter das nit nehilchas to say that Teirah b'nei kol mitzvahs, so it seems like it's by all mitzvahs. So you should have said that nehilchas to say that Teirah by all mitzvahs. We see he says it in Shabbos, but he says it in a way that applies to all the mitzvahs. So it's a little confusing here. We try to make a clear difference between all the mitzvahs and Shabbos, and that's what we did Lashonis in the Rambam and Shabbos. But we see in Hilcha Shabbos, where he says what we said before is special in Shabbos, he puts in all the mitzvahs also. So it comes out like this. This limud that we learn, that the Rambam says that the Torah was given in a way that it should make you live and not die, goes on all mitzvahs, like he says, "Ei mishpotei HaTorah." He does the iker mutkish b'Shabbos. Mainly it's by Shabbos, which explains why he says it by Shabbos in Hilcha Shabbos. But he mentions all because they also have it. But by Shabbos we see it more. Und der Rieber sagt der Rambam nur in Hilcha Shabbos. Sagt das der Rambam nur in Hilcha Shabbos. That's why he says it only in Hilcha Shabbos. Und he's dort eich meisiv the shlile, and he even adds over there the other side that Elo apikurim shem which is achilu Shabbos v'oser. That those apikurim say that you're not allowed to do it, and if you chal Shabbos to save someone's life, it's chilul Shabbos, and it's also aleim. The Torah says on them that's chukim leitevin, that you have laws which are no good. So he says it in Hilcha Shabbos. Doesn't say it in others. Why? We just said that the Rambam in one way says that whatever we said by Shabbos applies to all. So it must be here that it applies to all, but especially by Shabbos. And just to give an introduction to make it clearer what to expect, what the Rebbe is going to bring out here, that this that we said, that in Shabbos, there is no Shabbos to begin with, no Easter Shabbos to begin with, not to be pushed away, there's no push in the Shabbos. It's a new thing that Rebbe is going to say. It's not only that there is no Easter Shabbos. The Rebbe is going to add another point. And I'm giving up before we're learning it, but I'm just what to expect. That not only is there no Aveir of Shabbos, but it's overridden. Not only is it that there is no Aveir of Shabbos to begin with, the Rebbe is going to come up with a new Chidush. That when it comes to Pikuach Nefesh and you Machal Shabbos, it's part of keeping Shabbos. Not only is it okay and there's no problem, this is another form in keeping Shabbos. That's called keeping Shabbos. It's a third madrega. It's in keeping Shabbos. And the Rebbe is going to say the same thing by other mitzvahs, but not exactly the same. And that's why it's written by everything. That by other mitzvahs also, that if you're Aver and Aver in order to save someone's life, you are Mekayim that mitzvah that you're Aver, you're Mekayim that, but not the same as here. That's why he said in Hilchah Shabbos. But Kedalakam, as the Rebbe says, he'll explain it now. That when das Verstehen behagdim, we'll understand this by first bringing in was the limit from Achrei ben V'lei Shabbos ben bring the Rambam Shabbos. We look at an interesting thing when the Rambam brings this limud that from the word V'chai b'hem we learn out you should live with it and not die with it. The Gabe Shabbos he doesn't bring it if them klalo inyan as pikuach nefesh liche Shabbos. He doesn't say pikuach nefesh pushes away Shabbos and he brings the limud like it says V'chai b'hem V'lei Shabbos. Doesn't do that. But if them was also concerning one detail, he says like this. You're not allowed to hesitate. You're not allowed to hold back and wait till you machal Shabbos in order to save his life. That's osir. That's what Rambam says. In Gemara is the limud of Klali inyan pikuach nefesh decha Shabbos ever welcome sofik. The Gemara brings the pasuk by Shabbos, but the Gemara says it not like about the fact that you can't wait. It says pikuach nefesh pushes away Shabbos, even when it's a sofik pikuach nefesh, and the pasuk says v'chai b'hem. Why does the Rambam not bring it concerning the din itself, the Pikuach Nefesh Teicha Shabbos? He brings it in this detail that it's forbidden to hold back, to wait. Why does he change from the Gemara? Now, the Farshim Zogen, so the question is also, where does the Rambam get this? That waiting is also a problem. The Gemara doesn't say waiting is a problem. The Gemara just says that you're allowed, you should, Pikuach Nefesh pushes away Shabbos. You should Mchal Shabbos for Pikuach Nefesh. Doesn't talk about whether you could wait or not. The Rambam has a new din. That waiting for it, if you push away and you wait the extra few moments, it's also because of this posik. So first of all, where does the Rambam get it from? So Mefarshim sagen, Ademoke von dem Din an Aldo is Rambam is von der zweite Gemara. The Rambam says that not the Gemara where it speaks about the Pikuach Nefesh Decha Shabbos doesn't say that it's not talking about waiting. But there's another Gemara which tells us you're not allowed to wait. What is the Gemara? It's a Gemara in the Shalmi, in the Gemara in Yuma Pedalet. It says like this, the one that goes faster to be Mechal Shabbos to save a life is best. Someone makes a shayla out of it, goes around asking, am I allowed to or not? So you're committing to a certain degree murder. That's what the Gemara says. The Rambam zokta b'nidem loshen, but to say that that's the Mokeh, Rambam doesn't write this loshen, or the Bedema is something similar. It gets brought down to Shulchan Aruch. The Rambam writes a different loshen. The Rambam writes the Loshen Osir. A Loshen al derech zeh, something like this, that it's better if you don't wait. The Rambam says, Magdil hatzila nefesh, it's meshubah, the faster you go to save the person is better. Zog the Rambam meshna vayte dik aloch. That's a separate aloch. In this aloch, he doesn't say that. No Loshen shel isur. You're not allowed to. It's not avera. Osir lismameya. You're not allowed. So the Tzorich B, we have to understand Favos the Rambam Mishadne for Lashon Gemara. So why did the Rambam change? The Gemara doesn't say that. The Gemara doesn't say that it's osir. The Gemara says it's better if you don't and don't wait, etc., etc. So why does the Rambam change that? So obviously the Rambam is trying to tell us something. The Ashleima that we could say, I mean, them Shinoi main the Rambam Maruz bringing the Hagdor in Pikuach Nefesh Decha Shabbos. By saying these words, the Rambam wants to bring out the classification to classify what is this concept of Pikuach Nefesh Decha Shabbos. And the Rambam explains what he's trying to tell us. The Loshen Hanisha the Loshen of the Gemara, that if you go around, you ask a question, it's no good. Don't go ask. And the Loshen, if whoever is being asked is no good. You shouldn't go ask. If you go ask, it's like you're meantime committing murder because you're taking up time. Or even the Loshen, the faster you go, the better it is. That brings out Ados is a mile, it's a dominion mitzvah Pikuach Nefesh. It means like this: because of Pikuach Nefesh, because the person's life is in danger, there's a mile to do it faster, because it's negayah to how fast you're going to save his life. Now, Shenke the Loshen with the Rambam is mishana, but the way the Rambam who changes and he says, you're not allowed to wait in the Chilul Shabbos by a sick person. It's a din in Hilchah Shabbos. In other words, what is the din that you have to Mechal Shabbos to save a person? So you can think of it, look at it two ways. You could say, well, we have two things contradict. There's the Isa Shabbos, and you can't do this and this. There's Pikuach Nefesh, because that you should do this. So Pikuach Nefesh is stronger. Now you could say it's stronger because it pushes it away. You could say it's stronger, it takes away, there is no Isa to begin with. But what is the reason why we do this? Because Shabbos over is more important. It's a din in the halachas of Shabbos. No, normally you would think it's a din in halacha Pikuach Nefesh. Pikuach Nefesh is so important that it makes that there is no Shabbos. Whether it pushes it away or makes that it's mutter, it's no Shabbos. But it's a din that Pikuach Nefesh has that power. It's a din in Pikuach Nefesh. But the Rambam is trying to tell us that this Isur of not helping the person because of Shabbos is a din in Hilchas Shabbos. In other words, as the Rebbe is going to say soon, that Shabbos itself, the mitzvah of Shabbos tells you, in this case, don't keep me. And if then bring the Rambam Mashiach says, and that's what the Rambam brings on this, on the union of waiting, which means by waiting, the Rambam stresses the words that it's a din, also it's made b'chil Shabbos. In other words, don't wait with the chil Shabbos. Not that say don't wait with Pikuach Nefesh. Don't wait with the chil Shabbos, because Shabbos, and it's a din in Hilchas Shabbos. So he brings, well, the fun lengthness up. Where do we know this? That it's a din in Shabbos, and we'll see soon how, but it's a din in Shmira Shabbos. You're keeping Shabbos by being Machal Shabbos for Pikuach Nefesh. Where do we see? And that we're taken from the Pasuk, V'chayv Li Shabbos B'hem. So the Pshat is like this. Neis of them limud V'chayv B'hem. The Rebbe is like this. Besides the limud that we have in Gemara, that we have Pikuach Nefesh pushes away Shabbos, is learned out from V'chayv B'hem, was hot nit kempirchit, that the Gemara said that that's the only limud that we can't disprove, and it stays. But the Gemara canal, but the Gemara brings other limudim, and don't noch limudim Gemara, other limudim, other reasons. Amongst them, it says like this: was bringt sich in halacha, this limud, why Pikuach Nefesh is stronger than Shabbos, is also brought in halacha. Even though in Gemara it says the main one is the posik v'chai b'hem, but there's other reason. What is that? Shomer b'nei Yisrael Shabbos. It says Yidden should keep Shabbos. So the Gemara says Omra Torah Chalal Shabbos Achas Kadesh Yishma Shabbos Asarbe. You should be Machalal one Shabbos, so keep him, so B'meila he'll be alive, in order that you should later keep many Shabbos. If he dies, he won't keep Shabbos. If you cure him, he can live another 25 years and he'll keep 25 years of Shabbos. So that's a svara why you should be Machalal Shabbos to save someone's life. The difference between these two, whether we learn it out from V'chai B'hem, or we learn it out from the svara that it's worth to Mechala Shabbos once because they should keep many Shabbosim. The difference is like this. First of all, the Rebbe Neiseva, in addition to number one, the limut from Shomer Chalal Shabbos Achish Shabbos Harbe is Adin Prot and Gei Shabbos. Nashenke V'chai B'hem is Eich Kanal Negei L'chal Mitzvahs. The svara of be Mechala one Shabbos to keep more Shabbosim is only a svara by Shabbos. The pasuk V'chai B'hem doesn't speak about Shabbos. So that pasuk V'chai B'hem that you have to Pikuach Nefesh pushes away Aveire goes not only on Shabbos. So that's the Ma'ila V'chai B'hem. But another thing, Mitzadam Limut from the Shomro Kumtu is Adisibi Sul Shabbos Alein. By the words V'Shomro, keep Shabbos, and we learn out from there, V'Mechala Shabbos, to keep Shabbos, it means you're doing it for the purpose of Shabbos. Kedei Sheyishma Shabbos Harbe. In other words, why are you Mechala Shabbos in order to keep Shabbos? Well, Loshen Rasha, like Rasha says, Kedai Lasa Shabbos Acheres, Kedei Lasa Shabbos Acheres, Yizur B'Shabbosu, V'Kim Shmir Shabbos Harbe. In order to keep other Shabbosim, so you should this Shabbos make sure to be Mechala Shabbos. So, in other words, it's not worth to be Mechala Shabbos, not to be Mechala Shabbos, so he'll die. It's better, it's worth that he should keep other Shabbosim, and that'll only come from Mechala to Shabbos. So we see from here, what is the pshat? That Shabbos tells you it's good for me, for Shabbos, that you should be Mechala Shabbos. Mashenkim is at V'chai B'hem, it does need to live them kiyum mitzvahs in the middle. V'chai B'hem is not because the mitzvahs are so important. Nor to live Atzorat Nefesh Yisrael. V'chai B'hem means mitzvahs are given that you should live. But if you don't live, it's not because the mitzvahs will gain from it. The Torah just says, I gave you mitzvahs to live and not to die. If you're going to die, then don't keep the mitzvahs. So it's a din in the Pikuach Nefesh. Saving of a Yidden is so important. But in this limud it says Shabbos. But it's Eich Achilik in the Geder Achilul. So it's not only who's asking you to be Mechala Shabbos. Is it Pikuach Nefesh is asking you? That's by other mitzvahs. And by Shabbos, Shabbos is asking you because you're going to gain Shabbos. But besides that, there's a chilik in what is the pshat the chilul. Mitzat chalul of Shabbos achish wasn't harbe. When we say bima chalul one Shabbos, desecrate one Shabbos, so you should keep a lot of Shabbosim. Kelo. So what the Rebbe is going to say here, and I'll say it before we say inside, that what it means is, even when you say chalul of Shabbos achas, it's worth for Shabbos. So Shabbos is happy that you're machalot, so you keep Shabbos. But what is the pshat? You machalot one Shabbos, and it's worth for Shabbos. Like Shabbos makes a cheshbon. You could keep another 100 Shabbosim. Here you can machalot one. So make a number, make a mathematics, and it's kedai to be machalot one Shabbos. So it's good for Shabbos. So Shabbos is once you should be machalot, but it doesn't take away from the fact that this Shabbos is chilo. You are machalot, but it's kedai. Make a cheshbon. It's kedai machalot Shabbos to keep more. Even the way Kelo the Rechaim zogt. Even the way the Rechaim says. The Rechaim says like this. Well, the Lamdach she'ein ze chilul. Ater of the Kodesh Shmir Shabbos. The Rambam says that you're machalot Shabbos with Pekuach Nefesh. It's not called chilul Shabbos. You're not desecrating the Shabbos. You're keeping Shabbos. What does that mean? You're doing something for the good of Shabbos. But das was Kodesh Shmir Shabbos. But this that we say it's called keeping Shabbos is the far where their chilul is to leave their mitzvah from Shabbos. Shmir Shabbos harbe. It's not a chilul. But it's good for Shabbos. So why is it Shmira Shabbos? Even according to Rechaim, it's called Shmira Shabbos because Shabbos gains. It's this time it's a chilul, but Shabbos gains. If you have one chilul versus 1,000 Shmira Shabbos, it's worth it. But it's still a chilul. But it's more than that. The Rebbe says from the word V'chai Behem, we're learning out as the Maaseh b'Shabbos hu apul. So according to that, not the way we learn, according to the way we said till the normal way, even according to the Rechaim, is Maaseh b'Shabbos zu apuluf and chilul Shabbos. What you're doing today is chilul Shabbos. Now, azach chilul in velchem is mechuyim. It's mitzvah Shabbos is b'chal. Shabbos is harbe. Because of Shabbos b'chlal, you should be mechal, and it's worth it. And it's not worth it because pikuach nefesh is stronger than Shabbos. It's not because pikuach nefesh overrides Shabbos. It's because Shabbos itself gains, not pikuach nefesh wins. That's only if you say it. But if you learn from Chai Behem, you shouldn't die. Is number one a retvek and kiyum mitzvah v'chal. It's talking first by all the mitzvahs, but besides that, the limud is not in the game Ma'aseh. The limud does not tell you it should be mechalal Shabbos because Shabbos will gain more than if you keep the Shabbos. Because if you keep the Shabbos, he'll die, and like this, he'll keep more Shabbos. Nor b'negeya kiyum mitzvahs. This is called doing the mitzvah. This is a prat in kiyum mitzvahs. What it says, V'chai Behem, mitzvahs are made to live. It's a din in the mitzvahs. In our case, what does it mean? You are keeping Shabbos. This haste, it means Chilul Shabbos v'mokim sakonis nefoshes is nit nor ados, is nit Chilul Shabbos by Chilul Shabbos when it's save someone's life. Is not only that it's not Chilul Shabbos, nor the Asiyah is Kruya Shmil Shabbos. What you're doing to Chilul Shabbos is called keeping Shabbos. The etzem ma'aseh achilul to the pikuach nefesh is inyono shmira Shabbos. The mere fact that you're doing something to save someone's life, you are keeping Shabbos. And the Rebbe says in the order here, in other words, it has nothing to do with what he says here, whether it's hutra or tchuya, whether Shabbos the pikuach nefesh pushes away Shabbos or pikuach nefesh is mateh Shabbos. It's a new thing here. When it comes to pikuach nefesh and you're mechal Shabbos, you are keeping Shabbos. Now, what made that happen? So it could be Tchuya, could be Hutta, the Rebbe says, could be Na'or 50, could be either way. And the Order 51, the Rebbe says, B'signa nacha, in different lotion. B'chol mitzvahs mutgesh rak shagim v'chai behem odim meyuchad la'atzim v'lei Shabbos behem. We have the same posik v'chai behem by Shabbos and by all mitzvahs. But by all mitzvahs, the main thing is don't die. That's what it's trying to tell you. V'lei shu chelik prat mitzvah. But it doesn't mean that doing the Aveira becomes part of the mitzvah. You're still not part of the mitzvah, but still you have to do it. Lo yomas behem. Hashenki b'negei Shabbos mutgesh u'chelik u'prat the mitzvah Shabbos. V'rei agdin klodei v'chai behem. So you have to live with mitzvahs. It means that when you are machal Shabbos, which we call chilul Shabbos, it's not only is it not chilul Shabbos, you are by doing that act, you are keeping Shabbos. What does that mean? You could say it doesn't matter, but how do you say that is part of Shmira Shabbos? And that's the Chiddush of the Rebbe. And the Rebbe is going to show how this is by Shabbos, and then he's going to come out. Similar to that, we have a little bit also by other mitzvahs, and that will explain why it's written Dafke by Shabbos. Nevertheless, you include other mitzvahs also, as we will see in a second. The Asbara with explanations like this. By Shabbos, Shmeru, you should keep my mitzvahs. This is a sign. Keep Shabbos. It's a sign, between me and you, for all generations, that you should know that I am Hashem, I am God that makes you holy. Rasha says, what does the pasuk mean? This Shabbos is a sign, a great sign between us, that I chose you. That I chose my day of rest to become your day. So what does it mean? That Shabbos is a sign of the connection between Yid and Eibishter. Mitzvah Shabbos, Mitzvah Shvisha Shabbos is Eisi Beini V'Nechem Shebacharti B'Chem. Since that's a sign between me, meaning the Eibishter and the Yidden, a sign that the Eibishter chose the Yidden. In other words, chose the connection of the Eibishter, how much he loves the Yidden. When the Yid is in a situation that his life is in danger, felt in the Metzah meaning for Shabbos, there's a lack in Shabbos. Shabbos shows how much the Eibishter loves Yidden. And when a person is dying, that is a contradiction to what Shabbos is. Shabbos is the Eibishter wants you, the Eibishter loves you, and here the Eibishter is making you die. It looks like the Eibishter is making you die. So therefore, if you mechal Shabbos because of saving the life, it need no was is mekayim a mitzvah mekuch nefesh. Not only mekayim a mitzvah of saving someone's life, nor means thereby mekayim an inyan nikif shmir Shabbos. We're mekayim what Shabbos means. What does it mean? Keep Shabbos. Shabbos is to show the sign that the Eibishter is close with us. If someone is sick, it's opposite. If you do something to save someone's life, you are filling what is missing here in this case. If the person is sick, the sign of connection, the Eibishter is missing. Is he sick? The Eibishter cares about him. And if you go and you save the person's life, so going and saving the person's life means you're doing what Shabbos is supposed to do. So you're taking the place, so you are doing Shabbos. There is wert need nor duchen nifel. The Rebbe continues. It's not only because the person's life will be saved. The male, that's a sign. Der mitvas mat matzah ben nefesh mi Yisrael du feminist is where the mitzvahs from the Shabbos since you save the Yid. The Yid's life, and the Yid is the and the Yid is the one that is part of the ace. When we say there's an ace between the Eibishter and the Yidden, so the Yid is part of that ace. So when you save someone's life, you're accomplishing the days. So really, it seems that it's because of what's going to happen. Since the Yid's life will be saved, so at that point, when his life is saved, you have accomplished what Shabbos is supposed to do. And the Rebbe goes even further. It's not only the nifal, the result. Because so far you could think it's the result. The ace is that the Eibishter loves Yidden. If a Yid's life is saved, that's the ace. That's exactly like Shabbos. The Rebbe says even more. More than that. The fact that you are going to go and save someone's life through Chilul Shabbos, if it's the case, that itself, not only because the result will be, your act of doing it is part similar to what Shabbos represents. When you save a Yid who's in danger on Shabbos, is durch dem Chilul Shabbos latzalose is memekayim start from the meis bein benechem. By you doing the pu'ula, the act of Chilul Shabbos, you're strengthening that ace, which is the union of Shabbos. Why are you doing it? Why are you going to light a fire to save the person's life? Not only the end is the end result, you save his life. So now you did the ace, the connection. You showed how the Eibishter loves Yidden and his life is important. The mere fact that you're mechala, why are you lighting a fire if you have to? Because you want to save the person's life. That strengthens what Shabbos is. The Eibishter is Beicher in Yidden. The Eibishter chooses Yidden. And he uses a lot. Shabbos haste. Shabbos tells you, I'm a darf ton di pula for Chil Shabbos to the beer. Do this act of what you're doing. Do the malacha that you're doing because of me, because of Shabbos. So the AC meet ubeinechem nefesh v'nayidin. It's a sign between me, which is the Eibishter, and you and the Yidden. So this is what Shabbos is. So it comes out a new thing. It's even much more than what the Achrei. The Achrei said that it's a dini Shabbos. It's not only pikuach nefesh override Shabbos, whichever way, but pikuach nefesh stronger than Shabbos. It's a dini Shabbos because if you do Shabbos, if you mechala Shabbos, you will have more Shabbos. So Shabbos gains. Here it's not, but Lepel, the Shabbos that you Mechalel is Takechila, but it's worth it. Not worth for Pekuach Nefesh only, it's worth for Shabbos itself, for all for the concept of Shabbos. But the Rebbe says here that the Pshat is, this is keeping Shabbos, being Mechalel, doing an act of trying to save someone's life on Shabbos, whichever way you do, whether you're doing it not without Chilul also, but even if it means Chilul makes no difference, you're doing an act of what Shabbos is supposed to accomplish, the Eis. And the Rebbe says, when them minion let it know, and this concept we learn from Ashayas Eis Hodom V'Chai Ben V'Lei Shomas Behem V'Sretzik V'Mitzvah B'Chlal. We learn it from this pasuk because the Rebbe says that where do we know this din of Pekuach Nefesh Dichasher from this pasuk? And then the Rebbe asks, but this pasuk is talking about all the mitzvahs. So we can know this by Shabbos, but we learn it out from this pasuk V'Chai Behem, even though the pasuk is talking by all of the mitzvahs. And that was one of the questions we said, whatever we're going to say special by Shabbos. And we learn it from this pasuk, but the pasuk is not talking only about Shabbos. So the Rebbe says, I'll tell you why. This inyan that when you're mechalal and you do an aveda to save someone's life. So by Shabbos we said this is the way we keep Shabbos. This is keeping Shabbos, not mechalal Shabbos. And by other mitzvahs we said really just you have to do it because Pekuach Nefesh is stronger. Be'emes, but all the mitzvahs is the same. And not only because what the chinuch, Sefer HaChinuch says like this. Sefer HaChinuch says, why is Pekuach Nefesh deich everything? He says like this. What's the cause of doing of having a mitzvah? What's the cause of doing a mitzvah? The Yidden. Without Yidden, you can't do mitzvahs. The ki masiba, ki makeh. So when you keep Yidden alive, that's called keeping the mitzvahs. Was the far deich and hakab of niatzolos nefosh. That's what the chinuch says. That's why we push. Everything is pushed away to save lives. V'chal hazoris v'chal Shabbos is a meshubach, and everyone that goes faster to mechal Shabbos to save a life is better, etc., etc. So the chinuch says the same thing, but what he says it's not mamish the exact same thing. The Rebbe says I'm saying more than that. More, and because of what the chinuch says, while alle mitzvahs is sibosam hu adam. All the mitzvahs is the sibda. So according to the Poshup Pshat Mechinuch is, since the person is the cause of the mitzvahs, a Yid is the cause of the mitzvahs. Without Yid, there is no mitzvahs. The Mele, a Yid is more important than the mitzvahs. So you have to be over on all the mitzvahs in order to save a Yid. That's what he says. But the Rebbe says for the same reason, but it's a deeper pshat than what the Chinuch meant. Because all the mitzvahs, the sibis, und alle sei seine Bezeichnung an Eis zwischen dem Eibischen mit Yidden, it's not only that physically, the Yidden are the source of the mitzvahs. If not for Yidden, there's no mitzvahs. It's more than that. The union of the mitzvahs is the same idea of the Eibish choosing Yidden and gave him the mitzvahs. So just like we said by Shabbos, because Shabbos is an Eis that the Eibish loves us. The Mele, if saving someone's life accomplishes this idea of bringing out that the Eibish loves us, by every mitzvah is the same. Every mitzvah, generally speaking, has this nekudah. And if you're Eiver Avera and you don't keep the mitzvah, by doing that, you're accomplishing what that mitzvah is supposed to be. But it's more special and more clear. Als Teichen Miyuchad from der mitzvah, something that's specific in this one mitzvah, steht das bei Shabbos, das bei Shabbos. And the Father is the limit from V'chai Bem, a limit Miyuchad by Shabbos. That's what the special limit of V'chai Bem is by Shabbos, Pekuach Nefesh Shabbos. We learn out from here. And the posuk we learn, the Rambam brings is a posuk by all because they all have the same nekudah, but it's written by Shabbos. So it comes out the bottom line is like this: that by Shabbos there is something different by all the mitzvahs. By Shabbos, if you mechal Shabbos for Pekuach Nefesh to save someone's life, by mechalo you are keeping Shabbos. By other mitzvahs, seeming not like that. That's nothing specific. The chlolis is by every mitzvah. Because every mitzvah shows the connection with Yidden and the Eibishter. So the Yid's life is important, not only because the Yid is the source of the mitzvah, otherwise there's no mitzvah, like it seems from the Chinuch, but deeper, because the mitzvahs are a sign, every mitzvah is a sign of the connection of the Eibishter and Yidden, how much the Eibishter loves Yidden. The Mele, to save someone's life, is keeping the mitzvah. Let's say someone will eat chametz on Pesach. The mitzvah of not eating chametz on Pesach is also showing the Eibishter loves us. And if it means to keep this mitzvah means that a person will die, it's the opposite of what the mitzvah is supposed to do. The mitzvah is supposed to show the love of the Eibush to the Yidden, and this mitzvah is going to cause the Yid to die. So by eating chametz on Pesach, in the case of Pekuach Nefesh, you are accomplishing what the mitzvah of Isur Chametz is. But here it's not so clear because the Torah doesn't say the word by all the mitzvahs, Eisi. The Etzem is like that. So it applies there too. The Iker, it's written in the Torah clearly, Eisi beini benechem by Shabbos. That's why by Shabbos it's mainly like this. Apizeh move was the Rambam. The Rabbi dem limud miyuchan halbegei Shabbos. That's why when the Rambam brings this limud of a chai behem by Shabbos, he writes. When he doesn't write it on the din of pikuach nefesh push, he writes it. You're not allowed to hesitate in being mechal Shabbos when it comes to a person who's sick. Danger, his life is danger. And you quote Shnemer as it says, the Torah says we should do it to live with it, not to die. So he says it by Shabbos, but as we said before, from Shabbos he learns it out for all dinim. Because what does he say right after that? This teaches us that all mishpatim of the Torah, all dinim of the Torah is not a nekama, is not a revenge, not a harsh thing. It's only pity and kindness and peace in the world. But l'chura, he's only saying it by Shabbos, and that's why he says Shabbos. But how does he learn from here for all the mitzvahs? Now we understand. From Shabbos, we could learn it out for all dinim. As neither pirishis, as the mokem sekonis on the mitzvahs nigizogivon. It's not the pshat that when if there's a danger, the mitzvahs weren't said. He's saying that you're not mechuyev. Because pikuach nefesh is more important, so the mitzvahs are not said then. No, the pirishis as the mishpote atera. The pshat is the mishpote atera. Here, mishpote atera, the Rebbe said, not if it means not the punishments of Torah. Mishpote atera means the dinim of the Torah. Gufazon, the dinim themselves, like using the example of not eating chometz HaPesach. Chomet, the Isser of chometz HaPesach himself says, that if his life is in danger, so the Isser of chometz HaPesach wants, as part of what the mitzvah of Isser chometz HaPesach is, wants that you should eat chometz. That'll save the life. Because all the mishpatim zayin rachman and chesed and shalom ve'elam. Aber Rambam sagt es sogar bei Shabbos. Rambam says it by Shabbos. We learn to up for Shabbos, and we learn that by all the mitzvahs from Shabbos. Where is it clear? It's clear on Shabbos. Now the Rebbe says, based on this, will answer another kasha. A kasha at some of what's the kasha? The chure, the posuk kasha says, the posuk says a person should do the mitzvahs to live. So from there we know that he shouldn't keep the mitzvah if he's going to die because of the mitzvah. Okay. We're talking about the person himself. So we understand that from here we learn out, anytime there are all Avedas that you have to be able and not get killed. Same thing if you're sick. So we can learn out from here that the person himself is allowed to and should be able on the Aveda. We understand. So he's moving. That we understand. But the person himself, the Pasuk says, you should do the mitzvahs. But you should only do the mitzvahs if you live from it. But not if you'll die from it. How do you know that someone else could do it? How can we learn out from there that a person is mechuyev to Mechal Shabbos or do any Aveda to save someone else? Who does it say that? It's speaking about the person who has an obligation. I have an obligation to a mitzvah. If my keeping the mitzvah puts me in danger, we learn out from the Pasuk v'chaybem. Live with it, so don't keep the mitzvah. Go against the mitzvah. But where do we see, Meforshim ask, that this applies to another person, not the person himself, is also allowed to Ever an Aveda to save the person's life. That here now is moving based on what we said, we understand it. From the meeting, when you save a Yid's life, no matter who it is, who's doing it, is it a mit mekayim the mosvish the. Since we're saying that the Aveda itself tells you, I want you to be Ever, because reason for the mitzvah that you're not allowed to do a certain thing is a ace, so it makes no difference who. Because we said before that the act, let's say Shabbos, the act that I'm making a fire on Shabbos and that'll help save someone's life, that act is doing the ace. That is an act of helping Eden, of bringing out the sign that David loves us. So what's the difference of me and you? If it's yourself, you're doing this, the union of the sign. If someone is also doing the sign, so it's automatically on him too. And therefore, it applies to him too. This could explain the connection between what we just said now, this parsha, to Shabbos before Pesach, Shabbos HaGodel, was Bishon Zu Tovshim Mem Daled, in the year Tovshim Mem Daled, when the Sikh was printed the first time, is Erchal, the Shabbos, the Parsha saying the Parsha Achrei. It came out, Shabbos HaGodel, Shabbos before Pesach, came out in this parsha. So there must be a connection. So the Rebbe explains the connection. The time of the Shabbos, Veton Guru of Shabbos HaGodel, bring the Alter Rebbe Shechot. The reason why Shabbos before Pesach is called Shabbos HaGodel, Alter Rebbe says like this. This is what he says. Shabbos Lifnei Pesach, Keren is Shabbos HaGodel. Shabbos before Pesach we call the Big Shabbos. Hishnasa b'nes Godel, there was a big miracle happened that Shabbos. Shapesach Mitzrayim ha'michtav asel ha'chedesh. The Korban Pesach that he brought then was that you had to bring it on 14th day of Nisan, which is out of Pesach. But the din was that they had to take the animal, sheep, on the 10th day of the month. Ve'isayim Shabbos hoyu. That day, the 15th day of Nisan, which is Yetzias Mitzrayim, was Thursday that year. So the 10th day was Shabbos. So the Yidden took the animal on Shabbos already. Ukshaloch Yisrael Pischei Beis Shabbos, when Yidden took the Korban Pesach on that Shabbos, Niskapsu B'chei Mitzrayim Yisrael V'Sholom Lo Mazeh Meisikach. The Yidden, the firstborn of Mitzrayim, saw them do it, gathered around, said, "What are you doing? What's going on here?" They said, Pesach Pesach Hashem. This is a Korban Pesach to Hashem. Sheyaharek B'chei Mitzrayim. That he will kill the firstborn of Mitzrayim. So they went to their fathers, to Pare, asking to let Yidden go out. They didn't want. The Chayrim made a war, a civil war with the other Mitzrayim, and that was something special, a big nest. The Kova Nezel is according to the datas with Shabbos. They made that every year we should remember this nest, since it happened on Shabbos that time before Yetzias Mitzrayim. So we do it on Shabbos before Pesach. We call it Shabbos HaGodel. We call it Shabbos HaGodel because there's a Nes Godel, something bad. That's what the Alter Rebbe says. That's hey, so what does it mean? Yasiyas Maloche, taking this on Shabbos, taking the animal on the 10th of Nisan that year was Shabbos. So they did a Malocha on Shabbos. Did something you shouldn't do on Shabbos. So this Malocha that they did, taking it, because they were supposed to take it on the 10th day of Nisan, which is Shabbos. For Niden, Yenim Shabbos, that the Yidden did that Shabbos, which because they were doing, they wouldn't bring the Korban Pesach yet, but because of what they were doing then, brought that they should tell the firstborn Mitzrayim, Zevach Pesach al Hashem, Sheharet B'chei Mitzrayim. This is the Korban Pesach, and they will kill the Mitzrayim. But does goof of Ufkit, and this caused, as nit nor hat man die Yidden nit angeredet, that not only did the Yidden, did the Mitzrayim not hurt the Yidden for doing what they did, nor noch mehr, this brought more. The B'chei Mitzrayim sind gegangen, Mona sheishach es Yisrael. The B'chei Mitzrayim asked for the Yidden to be sent out. These as Horgo Harbe Mehem, for them saying they killed some of their fathers, they killed parents, and they killed others. What does that mean? That means that the act that they did brought out something that was the opposite. In other words, going out of Mitzrayim, the beginning of going out of Mitzrayim, which was when the B'cheirim killed the other Mitzrayim, came because of an act that they did that day, which fits to what we said before, that Pikuach Nefesh by Shabbos is Deiche, because the act that you do to be Mechal Shabbos is an act that brings what Shabbos is supposed to bring. There also, the act on Shabbos that they took the Seh brought about the inyan of the Eibish's love to the Eden. That brought out the concept that they were the B'cheirim who were asking to let the Eden out. This could be another reason why it's called Shabbos HaGodel, the big Shabbos. This brought a greatness in Shabbos. If when the Yidden were saved, and part of the saving of the Yidden came through what happened on Shabbos HaGodel. So it happened on Shabbos, so this brought out the point of Shabbos even more. What's the point of Shabbos? Shabbos is a sign between the Eibush and how the Eibush loves Yidden. Chose the Yidden. That's what Shabbos is. What brought out that point stronger? The fact that they took the sheep on Shabbos, and b'meila that brought the B'cheirim to fight with the other Mitzrayim and want to let the Yidden out. That brings out the love of the Eibush to Yidden. So what Shabbos is, so it's not Shabbos HaGodel, a big Shabbos, because Nes Godel happened, the big Nes, b'meila, And this happened on Shabbos, so it's Shabbos HaGodel. The Shabbos is bigger, based on what we said before. The Shabbos, meaning the concept of Shabbos, which shows the Eibishter, shows the Eden, became bigger on that Shabbos. Why? Because the fact that what they did on that Shabbos brought out what Shabbos really brings out, and here brought out even more, that the Goyim, the Bcheirim, wanted to make sure that he didn't go out, and they killed the other Mitzrayim who did not want to let them go out. So that fits to what we said before, that this itself is not Chilul Shabbos, but it's also Kiyum Shabbos. It is Kiyum Shabbos. And Be'emes, not only by Shabbos, by every Aveira, that if you do an Aveira for Pikuach Nefesh, it means you're going against the mitzvah, against the din. So it's not going against the din. This din itself is niskayim, because every mitzvah is to show that the Eibush connected to Eden is niskayim through saving Yid's life, which stresses more how much the Eibush loves the Eden.